What's up guys, welcome back to another video. It's Lex here. So in this video I want to talk about purely kind of going into the unknown with God and being able to take that step into the unknown. And it might be kind of like a feeling like you're in the void with God, in the sense that like you don't know what God is about to do in your life and you don't necessarily always like know what's going on. Maybe there's not a lot of movement in your life at this time or something like that when you're watching this video. And that's when you kind of have to just trust God, and that's where the true faith is developed, is in that void, in where you're feeling like nothing is really moving. Maybe you're building something in your purpose or whatever, and you're focusing on your faith, you're building your faith, and you feel like you struggle in many areas. And whether it's like your work, business, or whatever you're doing, maybe you're just having life difficulties to get through and it feels like there's no movement. And that's when you need to really have true faith and pray to God and read God's word and really ground yourself in God. Because when you can ground yourself in God and just remember God in your heart all the time, and not lose that faith, that's when you are able to most peacefully go through those seasons where you are in that void and you feel like you need to walk into the unknown and you don't know what's going to happen. I could say like I do a lot of those like moments in the past like 6 months now or so that I've been on this faith journey about. I've had to do a lot of like leaps of faith, or like walking into the unknown, especially with traveling and everything, and taking these new purposes and work ventures that I'm doing, and going deeper into my faith and everything. And you could say leaving a lot of things behind, like family and stuff. So because of this, I've had to go to a lot of like stuff with the unknown, walk into the unknown with God. And it is like not really terrifying for me perhaps, but there's always a sense of, you could say could be a combination of fear or excitement or like nervousness or whatever you want to say. For me it was like kind of like excitement slash like moving on from like my past, because I was in the same hometown for a long time and everything. So it kind of like, for me, it was a big leap of faith, and trusting in God and walking in my faith. It was truly a good test of faith. And I think those kind of like walks with God, when you take a leap of faith with God, that's truly where your like true faith that you've developed is tested. Like when God has done those like little tests for you of true faith, then he gives you a bigger leap of faith to take with him. And that's where it's really tested, like, do you actually have true faith, and you can really trust God and walk in with him into the unknown, just like that. And this is where like more than likely like Satan and other things will try to attack you the most. Just before you take a big leap of faith is when you are just about to like make it, you could say, have a breakthrough moment. That's when Satan will try to stop you, disturb you, give you any negative thoughts, and anything to sway you away from God. And that's where you really need to trust God and really pray and ground yourself and find that sense of inner stillness and peace with God. Because if you don't have that, then you're gonna panic. And God doesn't really just make us go through a leap of faith straight away. He builds us up to be able to take that leap of faith, and that's the point with the faith journey, walking with God. And that way, once you build that faith up, he's gonna give you a leap of faith. It's not that it's not hard still to do, but you're gonna be more grounded and know God better and be able to trust God better. That's why the relationship needs to be developed with God. If you don't develop the relationship with God you're not gonna be able to take those leaps of faith at all. And God doesn't give us anything we couldn't handle at the time. So it's just about you walking in. God really just wants you to walk the steps, and he will do the rest, in a sense. Like, you just need to be able to take action and walk the steps, and he'll give you the way and make a way for you. Like, you don't need to worry about all the externals always. Of course, there's challenges and some things you need to figure out, but if you just stay fairly grounded and, you could say reasonable and logical in situations, in the sense that, like, have some conscience and reason and think to yourself like, okay, what is God trying to teach me here? What is God trying to lead me here? What is he trying to get me to do? I've had a lot of situations where I could have like panicked a lot, and you always have a little bit of like, maybe you might have like some kind of upset coming in and stuff like that. Like, you know, something goes wrong, then you need to figure out another solution, you know, trying to follow where God is trying to lead you next. And you know, you never know, like you could say like it's part of God's plan as well, and sometimes you just make a mistake and God saw the mistake already coming, and you need to sometimes just kind of like chill out, you could say, in the best way possible, be in peace and stillness, and then make better decisions from that state, because then you're not going to be as hasty, and you have a little quiet moment for yourself before you like take too many steps. But just know that God will make a way for you either way, but you need to take the right action steps too, and not just like rush around and do things too willfully all out, you know. Because humans are very prone to that, you know, especially if you aren't like too far into your faith and you aren't like used to trusting God, and you're always doing things on your own way. So that's like my advice for stepping into the unknown. You might have encountered a lot of feelings with it, but that's kind of also the point of leap of faith, is you might, despite of fear, you know, that voice of fear, you're able to still step in to that unknown, regardless of feeling all that fear within yourself, and not like let that fear dominate you, that negative feeling from Satan basically, which is fear. You don't let that dominate you, and same thing with every other feeling, like being upset or whatever, feeling negative. You don't let that dominate you. You understand that it's there, but you're able to move past it. And eventually when you work on your faith journey, this negativity will be able to vanish from you completely, so you don't have to worry about it. It's obviously a long process, takes a while, but you can make a lot of progress the more you like do this, and the more you are able to like not let these feelings dominate you and move forward, the more you're able to let go of them, and eventually they'll vanish completely on your faith journey. When reading truth, you know, praying to God, seeking enlightenment, and going through these trials and tribulations. And it's the same thing with like Peter as well, and others, like they went through trials and tribulations, and you know, they made mistakes, and you know, like Peter denied Jesus, and you know, all these mistakes happen, and you know, they all go through trials and tribulations, every person in the Bible, and you know, we go through this as well in our own ways. Maybe not to some great extent like in the past, like physically at least, and you know, all these troubles, but you know, just remember it's part of the journey, and you know, don't be afraid in a sense of mistakes, because they're probably going to happen, because you're human and you're not perfect, at least yet, and you'll never be completely perfect in the sense of like human notion of perfect, and God's requirement of perfect of us is a bit different than what we think might be perfect, as it usually is. What we think and what God thinks are two different things, and the truth and what humanity thinks are two different things. But yeah, just be able to not let these feelings dominate you and walk into the unknown. I hope this gives you motivation, and sharing my own experience, and you know, see how you feel after this video, and I hope that I can help you here, because walking in the unknown is probably the most important part of like your faith journey, in the sense that these are where you're truly tested and see what you can like do after you've built that faith. Thank you for watching. There's a Will This Way donation description, 101 description. Amen.